I'm assuming this is not the first time you're going through Matthew 24. I strongly believe all of you have gone through it several times, more than one time. And assuming you're super familiar with Olivet prophecy. But do you see connections with the material we discussed for two witnesses so far? Any bells ring? Yes, Gail.
When you were reading the gospel, and then there was this portion that said that when the two witnesses died, the people gave each other gifts, right? Or there was this part that the people, they were first tormented, but when the two witnesses died, they gave these people gave each other gifts.
Yes. Yes, that is the world would be celebrating their death.
Yes. I remember when it was 9/11, and also there was another occasion that Israel was greatly harmed. The Muslim community gave each other gifts. I don't know if you knew that, but that was like, oh, this was something the Muslims did. They celebrated by giving each other gifts. And that when you said that, it reminded me again of that situation that I saw on YouTube. They were celebratory and giving each other gifts and candies, and they were so happy. So I just want to give that comment on that verse or part of that verse. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Gail. I think some Muslims would consider Israel and United States as their enemy. And whenever something bad happens to them, they will rejoice. And I see your point of view. But this is very similar, but it is not talking about just Muslims. Everybody in the world, all the religions, all the countries would rejoice when the two witnesses are killed. So we're talking about a different event, but there is similarity of pattern. Thank you. We'll now go to Caroline. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Tagore. Looking at Matthew 24:15, I saw that it referred to Daniel the prophet, and that I like to reference back to references, and that is in Daniel 12. If you look in Daniel 12, God's last message to Daniel started with 4. But Daniel 12 talks about the great tribulation. Yeah.
Daniel 12, which verse?
Well, you can see throughout it. Daniel, look, there stood other two. This is what that refers to from Matthew, I think. Yeah, I think that Daniel 12 is what Matthew 24 is referring to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which other place do you see?
Well, I started with the beginning of 12 and just read through it and thought, yes, that's what it was referred to when the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually three places. Abomination, desolation is written in Prophet Daniel. Three places. All
Uh-huh.
three places we see the same pattern. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
This is one of the places. And from that time, the daily sacrifice is the word added by translators. There's no sacrifice in original Hebrew. So the dailies shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate is set up, and there shall be 1,290 days.
Yeah.
So the daily has to be taken out, and in its place, an abomination has to be set up. And when that abomination is set up, that makes the things desolate. So there are
Mhm.
three steps that Daniel gives us. And all the three places we see the similar pattern. First, daily has to be taken. That's a good connection. Even
Yeah,
Christ.
well, this is what I found, that wherever I find one thing of great interest, there's always another, it's always in another place. I always see it 2 or 3 times, if not more. Because the truth proves itself. It's its own witness to the truth. Thank you, Jagor.
You're welcome. I want to do this in great detail, Carolyn, in future presentations. When I do that, I will fully address this, how the daily is taken away and how the abomination is set up in its place. And then that would bring in the desolation. And Christ is asking us, when you see that, you flee. If you are in Judea, that's the time to flee. So the word daily is very fascinating word that is used in temple a lot. The daily can be translated as continually or perpetually. So it's used heavily in temple language, in the temple sacrifices, daily sacrifices, and it's not necessarily sacrifice. It's something more important. If you strip away sacrifice from Daniel, in those three places where daily sacrifice is taken away, there's no sacrifice. If you take that away, if daily is taken away, as it is in Hebrew, it's a greatly opens up itself, throws more light in the abomination desolation. But that's a great connection. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Any other? Yes, Gail.
I I just want to clarify when I said that yes, it happened that way, but considering I'm here in the Philippines and I'm aware of the Muslim uh, idealism, they want to turn the whole world to become Muslim. So there is this um, constant awareness from our part, especially in Palawan. The southern part has Muslims in them, and they're planning to build a huge mosque. They don't have big mosque in Palawan, but they're planning to do so. So right now, the pastors are praying and already knowing their plan are counter doing some things that are evangelistic in nature. So Also to let you know, the Philippines has the longest jihad, and it has, for the fundamentalists, it hasn't ended, because the Philippines, some of the portions of the Philippines used to be all Muslim. In I think, I don't know when, but even in the government now, they have the Muslim. They go underground. I mean, they creep up to the government. I think it's the same in your country. They're creeping up in all sectors of society, in education, in finance, in so many areas. Maybe similar to the Chinese way of doing it, that it's no longer just physical war, but economic and educational and everything else. So pertaining to this mindset, that maybe I have more awareness that it's creeping up, and if the one world government becomes the norm, and one world religion, sorry, not just the government, but the religion itself, then there is already going to be persecution, because we are not all inclusive, that there's just one God for everyone, and any religion is the same. So that's what I'm trying to say, of what expounding to what I wanted to say. Thank you, Tigor.
Yeah, you're welcome. Some of these beasts are global in nature. They span across multiple nations. And the beasts also come in different flavors. Some are political beasts and some are religious beasts. Some are economic and financial beasts. So when they have religious flavor, these beasts would force their ideas on others, right? That's when probably similar things would happen. And when they killed the two witnesses, people would celebrate. But after 3.5 days, the two witnesses would stand on their feet and they will be shocked and terrorized. And when they ascend to heaven and their enemies beheld them, and they thought, when they killed the two witnesses, they thought they're all done. And they won. They won the battle, and they thought two witnesses lost. But in reality, two witnesses won, because they died while witnessing. They died as martyrs, and they actually won the battle. They were faithful unto their death, and God resurrected them. This is very similar like Christ. Devil thought Christ lost it, but Christ gained it with a massive victory for him and his people, to resurrect them. And same thing has happening for the two witnesses. People world thought they lost, but they won. And actually the world lost the war, the battle, because immediately they are visited with this mega earthquake. So one time big occurrence of the earthquake, it shakes everything down. Whether it is a physical earthquake that shatters the whole infrastructure, or there is some kind of spiritual Semion earthquake that shakes the very foundations of this beast system, and that will topple the beast system. And it says how many 7,000 men died in that one instance of the earthquake. So there will be terrible judgments and the wrath of God and day of the Lord that will be unfolded on the whole world as a punishment. Yeah, good point, the beast system, because it says the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit, that will make war against the two witnesses. You're right. Any other insights, any other bells ring as we
To
discussed Olivet prophecy?
Gore, since you're bringing up the two witnesses, do you think this will also be the time of the resurrection? When the two witnesses are resurrected, do you think the rest of the
shout of the
the shout of the archangel, that occurs around the same time, and the rest of the dead in Christ rise, and then the rest, those who are alive, rise? Do you think that's around the same time as when the two witnesses rise?
That's right. I believe that is the case. Is it Scarlet or?
Yeah, Scarlet, sorry.
Yes, I do believe because 1 Corinthians 15 that you quoted, it's one-time event, the first resurrection. There would not be two first resurrections, right? Logically speaking. So the dead in Christ shall rise first, and those who are alive will caught up. And the two witnesses also should be logically, and all happens in the twinkling of an eye. But in two witnesses case, it's very fascinating. It's a two-stage resurrection. Probably it's a figurative. First, they will be resurrected. They stand on their feet. And then they were told from heaven, come up hitherto. And then they rise. And this two-stage resurrection, two steps, we can say, in the first resurrection. We also see that in prophecy of the valley of dry bones. I strongly believe that's also first resurrection. There are too many signatures to match. So there also we see the Ezekiel 37. Ezekiel goes through this huge valley where all the dry bones are there. And in spirit, he was made to walk, perhaps like a glide through the whole valley, like a drone. So he sees too many bones and too dry. And then the next step is God asks him, Son of Man, will these bones live? And he answers smartly, you know the Lord. And then God asks him to prophesy. You prophesy against these bones. Then he prophesies, and then bones come together, this clutter, and then they come together. And then he sees this sin, and the flesh comes on them, the sinews come, and the whole flesh and skin cover these bones. That means they have all the body parts, internal organs as well as external organs. They all came, and they're almost like dead bodies at that time, but there is no life in them. They are just dead bodies. And then the prophet was asked to prophesy again now, not to these dead bodies, but to the winds. The wind, oh wind. So he prophesies, and the four winds from four corners of the earth come and breathe into the nostrils of these men, and then they stand, and a big, huge army stands on their feet, just like two witnesses. There's a second stage from bones to the men standing. And then the third stage is they would be resurrected. That's the first resurrection. So we don't know how this first resurrection happens. Corinthians says it all happens in twinkling of an eye. But people have argued for each person is a twinkling of an eye. Some people would be raised to some bodily form, so that people would so notice that you are raised, and then you would caught up into heaven in the twinkling of an eye, so that they see the evidence that so and so, such a person is now alive. I don't know all the details, but I'm just throwing out the possibilities that could happen. Hope that helped you not to confuse, but help. That's the intention.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Tagore. Another quick question. In Revelation 11, of course, it's talking about measuring the temple. And we believe the temple is the body of Yeshua. How do you think we are measured?
I think that's a very good question. We briefly addressed that in the earlier presentations. There are 3 or 4 different teachings that address this subject, how we are measured. Measuring is judging. When you are measured, you are judged. And one way we are all judged by the teachings of Yeshua Jesus Christ. That is the standard, one standard for everybody, ever born, ever lived. So that's one way to look at it. Second way is they are also sealed. When John was told to measure, they were sealed. They were sealed in their righteous standing with God, or right standing with God. That is the second teaching, how you maintain. It's very personal between you and God. That is the second teaching. And third teaching is they were also sealed in Ezekiel prophecy, where 6 men with axes would start to slaughter the church. And they were church and the whole Israel in that context, but here it is the church and the world. They were slaughtered, but before they are slaughter everybody, they were asked to stop, and then the angel with an ink, he will come and mark on the foreheads of some people, and then the 6 men with axe, they were told not to touch those who are marked with this ink. And who are those marked? Who are crying and sighing for the abominations of the world. They're not participants of the abominations, but they are also not condoning the abominations, but they are standing against them internally and externally. And they were sighing and crying in prayer, in lamentation. And then God saw that as righteousness and asked them to be marked with this ink. So they are spared. So they are measured to be inside this temple. There are few others. There are multiple ways the measuring happens. And the people who are left outside in the court, they are not measured. So are they permanently left? They would never going to be part of this temple. We don't know. Some commentaries, some teachers think that they are not measured as of now. That's the stand they want to take. Perhaps their measuring might continue through these judgments, through these mega events, and perhaps they would be redeemed from their state back into the true church or back into the true temple. That's how they are measured. There's a potential for them to come back. And going back to your verse, Revelation 11, there are 3 primary elements that were given to us. First is the temple, that is Naas, the Holy of Holies. Second is the altar, which again comes back to prayers. We see that in Ezekiel, sighing and praying, sighing and crying for the abominations of the world. That's a metaphor for the whole qualitative prayers of the saints. That makes a big difference according to that. And also those who worship. And again, Christ gave us command to worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Only that kind of worship is legal now under New Covenant. Any other worship is illegal. And these people who are worshiping the Father in spirit and in truth, they are called true worshipers. So you have to be true worshiper, and you should be crying and sighing and the qualitative prayers, and you should be part of the Naas, that is the Holy of Holies. And Holy of Holies, Sanctum Sanctorium is another mega subject. the Ark of the Covenant, that box is there on which the pillar of cloud and pillar of fire would position itself, which is presence of God on the Ark of the Covenant. That is called house of God. So you, as a temple of God, should be part of that house of God. So the presence of God should be placed above you. That is, you are now the box, that is Ark of the Covenant, and everything within the Ark of Covenant should figuratively represent you, and you are subject to the authority of Christ and his Father. Basically, you are yielding your members, your inward components, to the authority and reigning of Christ. That is another way to look at how you are measured to be part of true church. It's more demanding. Your inward righteousness is super important. It's not something you show, but something you live inwardly. So 3 elements also I see. I covered a lot, sorry.
A very complete answer. Thank you, Gordon. That was a good, complete answer. Well, there is a lot to cry and sigh about, right? And if anyone has trouble doing that, go watch The Sound of Freedom, and you'll be crying and sighing. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. Like, we are kind of made callous sometimes to the murders. We routinely watch murder, so-and-so murdered, so-and-so murdered. We become callous. And scripture is warning us to becoming callous with the murders and abominations. And we are supposed to close our ears, hearing the blood. Some of these things are not popular in church, but scriptures are clear. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that a lot to sigh and cry about. We can, have our Bible in one hand, as somebody put it, and put in your newspaper in the other, and you're going to see the signs and the times and how close we probably are getting, because people are getting so aberrant, so I can see him giving men over to what kind of mind is it? There's a couple of words.
Reprobate.
A reprobate mind, an abased mind. We've got to be getting there globally with mankind. Some of the horrible things that are going on. And you were talking about deceit, and that's huge. We have to be discerning truth in this deceptive world. For 2 Corinthians 11, 13 through 14 talks about false apostles, deceitful workers, angels of light, great deception. And of course, we have that globally through media talking points, compromised scientists and doctors and religious leaders. And we have doctrines of demons. We have empty philosophies. And let's see, 1 Timothy 4:1 talks about the deceiving spirits, doctrines of demons, and so on and so forth. Well, so I think we've really got to get that armor on. We've got to put on that armor, Ephesians 6, I believe, and gird our belts with truth, gospel of peace, shield of faith, helmet of salvation, and on and on. And 2 Corinthians, we got to examine ourselves and see where we're at and in all of this. And I'm thinking of one of those doctrines that's really deceitful is the rapture doctrine, because I've just been hearing this from several sources. People are it can be any time now. We're going to be going, and we're going to avoid any of this, any of the plagues, any of the tribulation. They think that will be gone. Christ is coming back, getting his bride, getting them out of here, because they are not they're not for wrath. I think is one of the scriptures they quote. We look at it as 3.5 years of Satan's wrath, 3.5 of God's wrath. I don't know if I don't know, that I guess I still stand in that area of understanding. I think we are going to, I mean, obviously there's going to be some persecution, and Satan's going to wear down the saints. So how would you, what would you say to someone who's ready to go, the rapture's occurring, going to be any day now, and is there anything you think you could say to someone to keep them from losing their faith when this doesn't happen the way they think it will?
Yeah, I don't want to be too harsh for people who believe in rapture and
Right.
listen to this message over the internet. But rapture, pre-tribulation rapture is unscriptural. Tribulation will first occur, and then the second coming comes. I don't see the pre-tribulation rapture. That is false doctrine, and that is one of the major false doctrines people have bought in big numbers, fulfilling perhaps that verse. Many would come and many deceivers would come and deceive many. We see this doctrine is bought for many Christians. You are a minority if you are not believing in rapture, and sometimes in some situations you will be ridiculed for not believing rapture. And rapture gives you a passport to get out of tribulation. There is no such thing as everybody has to go through some tribulation, and some would go more into that depending on how much you are in bed with Jezebel, that spiritual Jezebel. Those who are in bed with her, God said he will throw them into the great tribulation. If you're not in bed with her, perhaps there could be less heat that you will be subjected to, but almost everyone goes through the great tribulation. And to say that you will be raptured before the tribulation occurs is a false doctrine. But there is a rapture, we call that resurrection, that happens after or at the time of second coming. So that is scriptural. So the timing of rapture is a debated thing, and it could be unscriptural, and that would loosen your vigilance, loosen your preparation to gear up for this heavy persecution and tribulation. So you thought you will be resurrected. As you said, you will not be resurrected. Then you will figure out it's all false. Then you may lose your faith, make a shipwreck of your faith, because the false doctrine that you believe turns out to be false. But you might have the slippage and think that whole Bible is wrong. Whole Bible is right, but you are wrong because you listen to somebody, some man. Let a man deceive you, while Christ is warning you, let no man deceive you. So that's a major deception people have bought in. That's obvious major rapture, pre-tribulation rapture as we call it. But I see there are some more equally dangerous doctrines of demons. We will discuss them. I think they are equally fatal and take out your salvation. You will not be in the first resurrection. If you go with some of them, they are more dangerous, perhaps more dangerous than rapture cult.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that. That was just one that's been on my mind lately because I've been hearing so many people all excited about we're so close, we're going to be taken out of here. We're not going to have to deal with all this, no need to fear. And there is no need to fear, but there's also no need to fear that we won't be taken up in a rapture. So thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and they've got names for this, so we're not the only ones that disagree with the pre-trib group, and then there's the mid-trib, and then the post-trib. I'm sure you're aware of all those beliefs. But anyway, I think Sandy's got her hand up, so I'll let her talk. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, let's go to Sandra. Hi, Sandra. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm way back before this discussion into the first part that Scarlett was addressing, which is the groups of people or groups that are changing the world and, you know, causing the things that we sigh and cry for. And she was very thorough in addressing, you know, political and all the different levels of that. But one I didn't hear her mention was the youth, which I see in a very strong way. The youth are being so changed through the educational system, through books and the beliefs of the teachers, that they know no other way except the way of this world, which is exact opposite of what we are like. You know, they become very selfish, and then a lot of the things they partake in, and to them it's just normal. The educational system is easily gotten a hold of them. I talked to one person who was at one of the camps at one of the Church of Gods, and things they had to control. I never thought of so many things that the children can bring in amongst the God's children. Not saying that the ones that come in are not God's children, but things they had to fight were vaping and tattoos and dress and hair color and all sorts of behaviors. And they did a hard work to control that, and they pretty much did, you know, but it could, the children are so many, and I know so many that I know who grew up in the church who are not the same. The world has gotten hold of them. And you know, I'm talking about before high school graduation. It's really sad out there. So I was going to include the educational system. That's all.
That's a very, very good point that you raised. It was once Pope told, like, you give me your children, I will get them what I want in one generation. I can exactly shape a country the way I want with one generation. You give me your children. It's kind of a thing that played out. And as you and I know, that there is a systematic attack on our schools and our universities. The first prayer is taken out, and God is ridiculed, and God's way, and Bible is despised, and people, students, youngsters going from Christian homes, they come back as atheists. They have no respect for parents, no love for their family, no reverence, respect for anybody else. They're selfish, and you see a different person once they come back from universities back. They don't, if they ever come back. That's one thing. There's a systematic attack, and there is some backlash from conservatives and some political things, like in Florida, they're trying to address, but I believe you are at no point of no return. Now, we can try to restore something, but something bad happens that pushes further away to in the evil direction than in good direction. What I mean to say, probably we would never get back to that point where we can restore Christian prayer in schools. So we couldn't fully undo the damage that is already done. And we already see the newer generation is so far different from us who are raised in a completely different culture. And their devil god most of our children, the next generation, which would be raised as atheists. And so they are already deceived. You are now a different generation. Devil and these beasts find no resistance at all from them. Yeah, let's go to Scarlett or
Sure, just wanted to quickly answer, Sandy, I totally agree with you. And this is before they get into college. Let's go back to kindergarten, where they are grooming our children. Satan is coming after our children and women. He's had a war on both, I think, through the ages, and it's just ramping up at this end time, even more so, where they are grooming our children into the LGBT, whatever alphabet soup system. It's horrible. There was a time when you could get away with not homeschooling, and your kids would come out maybe unscathed a bit if you did your homework and you did your work. But now, our children, if you put them in that system, that public school system, unless you really know the teachers and you know what kind of school, what they're teaching, you run the risk of getting them groomed into that. So just wanted to bring that up.
yeah, the primary school is very frightening. Anne Mary, let's go to Anne Mary.
I agree with everything that's said about the youth. I have a 10-year-old here, and the books that she requires to read, they are so, I couldn't even make up what's in them. And right now, for her birthday, she received a books, I think it's called Sky Dragon. And I read them with her so I know what's going on. And these books are terrible. There are tribes of dragons, and they kill and they maim and they fight. And then the queens kill their children. And she goes, well, she has to protect the tribes. And the children's answers to all this hate and this fight and this, it's all fighting and tribes and queens and killing and even killing children and killing brothers and sisters. And, oh, they have to do that, just, and I just don't understand it. And the books that, like just before school ended too, she was telling me a story that they read. And I asked her, what's the name of the book? And she said, no, it's the teacher's book. And she didn't know the name. And it was terrible. I mean, it was the children making fun of children, pulling their pants down, other things. I cannot believe it. And nobody seems to care. Nobody has anything to say. I wait for her after school and I try to talk to people and they don't even acknowledge. I don't understand it, but I see I hope for her so badly, but the school system, and they teach you not to trust your parents, because she said she got real mad at me too, because the teacher said she can do whatever she wants and she doesn't have to listen to anyone. And I said, well, you should listen to your parents. They love you and they would never lie. I don't have to listen to them. And that's their attitude. These are 10-year-olds. And you can't talk about any religion or anything. I'm just saying this because I see it every day and it breaks my heart. And I just hope for them. And I pray for her. And I pray. That's all I can do now is just pray. That's all. Sad, that's all.
That's the least we can do, Anne Mary, sighing and crying before God for these grievous things that we are seeing with our eyes. And not just for our benefit, but the prayers go to God directly. They come before his throne. and God would stop this madness, sometimes eliminate. Never think that your prayers are in vain. Prayers are heard, and prayers are remembered, and prayers are answered in His own time. But your prayer would make difference. This is like, sometimes we vote and we hope that our vote counts. There's a question mark, but we pray and our prayer counts. This is absolutely assured, your prayer counts. So one prayer would make difference. And if several people like you, like in this congregation as well as others, praying, and that is the only reason we have Christianity still standing in this country. And Europe is gone bad, and most of Africa, Asia is out long back. So this is called last bastion of Christianity. If Christianity goes away from United States, I think that's done. We have total darkness in the world. So some people are there here still praying, crying and sighing, and that's making difference. That's actually restraining these evil forces from total takeover. Isn't it a miracle that they are not able to take over fully? It's not because of the power of flesh. It's not because of your guns. Never mistake. Your prayers are making difference.
Yes, I do pray for her every day. And there's even things I can't even say. It's just so sad, but I pray for her and her family every day. And I pray before I walk in the house, I pray. So I know God, I'm just hoping that with the prayers down the road or something, she'll know, but I pray every day. Thank you.
Another good way I can recommend, I can suggest, pray with her if it is possible, loudly. Both of you go on knees and pray with her and pray for her as she hears, as well as God. And people found that very effective, and she would never leave, never forget those experiences, those prayers.
Now,
And they will be guide to her rest of her life, if possible.
I've tried. I cannot even say the word without her screaming. So I pray hard. That's all. I can't say no more. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your example. Let's go to Sandra.
Yeah, and Anne Marie, with your granddaughter, I must encourage you that you've told me things that you've gently told her in wisdom, and that will stay with her. It's not, you're also an influence that it'll be in her mind, even if there's this strong pull against it, you're having influence because you're her caregiver and she's with you so much. I really feel that your example shines bright for her. It really does. And what I was going to say also is about my granddaughter who just finished her first year of college. She was in a I forget what you call that kind of school, not a public school, but charter school. And so now in college, it was such a hard first year. It carried forth 4 roommates, and the 3 others bullied her, scorned her for her Christianity, and their behaviors, were there with boys and alcohol and all that stuff, just the behavior. But her being different, they huge pressure that caused anxiety. And I feel it's to her advantage that she made it through that first year, because she'll have to face stuff like that in the future too. But like, I talked to her today and I told her I really look forward to her next year. She's sought out being in with 3 Christian girls, and she's gotten together with them in the summer, and it looks like that'll be the turnaround to not have such strong anxiety and try to be doing your lessons in college. And I believe that can't be right, but I almost think she told me that there is a Bible group or a Christian group that some of the college students get together at, but I'd have to verify that because it doesn't seem right to say something like that, but I think there might be. So that's all.
I think that's a good defense. What do you say, Scarlett? Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Anne Marie, is this your grandchild, did you say?
Yes, but I do when I can, when I'm, it's hard to explain, but when I'm around her, I do put subtle hints in her. And I have to be very cautious at the times I say it. But I do try to put little bits of information in for her.
And could I ask, so it sounds like she gets very upset if you were to try to pray with
Oh,
her?
yes.
Well, that sounds, maybe you've thought of this. It sounds like a demonic influence, a familiar spirit who
Well,
doesn't want to be around or hear those words. But you, as a grandparent, have authority that you can, if not in her presence, you can go to another room, whatever, and you can rebuke that spirit off of her in Christ's name, in the power and authority of his name. And maybe you've done that, I don't know. But
before I enter the house, I do a prayer to bind all the evil spirits, and I pray before I go in the house. Yes, I do.
But have you directly, through Christ's power, rebuked that demon off of your granddaughter?
Well, I think I do, but I have a prayer I say. I have it written down, but
You might want to try just what I said.
okay.
Through his authority, you should have that authority as her grandparent. You should have that power through Christ to rebuke that demon or demons and just see how that goes.
Okay. Yes, I've been, yeah. I usually say binding. Thank
Well,
you. I will
yeah.
do that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
find your own words, but it is obviously it's the one word you don't want to leave out is through Christ's authority, Yeshua's authority, however you want to put it.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
That.
Yep, I got it written down. Thank you.